Hello everyone, I hope everyone is doing good and taking good care of themselves. So today I'm going to talk about how painful it is to be with an adult that was raised by covert narcissistic parents. So before I go deeper into the video, I would request you all to like, share, subscribe the channel and hit the notification bell so you guys are updated whenever we put out a new content. Now let's get going. So as we know that, these covert narcissistic parents are all the time, using their vulnerabilities to their advantage, playing victim, guilt tripping their children and manipulating their children, gaslighting their children into doing what they want them to do. So, those children who are raised by covert narcissists, as it is, have a lot of problem. Let me tell you what are the problems that they face. They grow up with low self-esteem. These children often doubt their own capabilities because they had been minimized and invalidated by their parents. So they grow up, with this chronic doubt whether at all I'm sufficient, whether at all I'm capable, whether at all I deserve it. So, they have their own share of challenges, and as an adult, because all that imprinting during that imprint phase in childhood, everything becomes so solidified. All these thoughts, ideas and perceptions gets so solidified that it becomes a part of who they are. It becomes a part of their reality. So these kids who are raised by covert narcissistic parents have low self-esteem issue, low confidence. In general, they are all the time depressed, and they are depressed because of themselves, because they don't know how to identify their emotions. They are unable to regulate their emotions, and they are unable to be their authentic self, and that bottles up, that begins to choke them. These children who are raised by narcissistic parents, they have been devalued, minimized, not seen and heard every time they did not listen to their parents or they did not obey to their parents. So these children, as it is, their actual creative and authentic self was never revered or never encouraged or never nourished. They were forced to be the way how their parents wanted them to be. So as it is, they grow up not being their authentic self, and that's a big problem because they are into concealing their emotions. They are unable to regulate. So these children grow up to be really handicapped. They really grow up being used to or addicted to certain kind of validation, and they know when they would get that, when they would be given those crumbs by their covert narcissistic parents. So it's a real damaging thing that happens to these kids. They begin to live their false self, and it is further validated, approved and authenticated by the parent, because the parent doesn't want them to be independent and authentic. They don't want their kids to be independent and authentic. They always want emotional codependency of their kids onto them. Covert narcissistic parents choosing their partner, they don't entertain their kids making decisions or staying away from the home, because they see their kids as a supply for their needs, supply for the admiration that they want, supply for the validation that they seek. So the kids are means to their need and supply. So they don't want their kid to ever become independent, and they don't want their kid to leave the house. They don't want their kid to leave the family. So they might go on saying, oh, she's a bad girl, it's a wrong choice, you are again going to suffer. Oh, you don't know, outside world is very bad. After all, it's a different thing staying with your parent. Not that I am disagreeing to that. Yes, but staying with a healthy family is an amazing thing, but staying with a toxic family is damaging. Staying together in a toxic family does more harm and damage than staying alone. So yes, these covert narcissistic parents really psychologically damage their children, and the kids uh, are just like dogs. The kids grow up into adults just to fulfill the wishes of their parent, and the parents know the button. These covert narcissistic parents know the button. They know when these kids don't do what they want them to do, they would say, oh, you had been a bad son. Enough. 10 days are spoilt, 10 days are ruined with just one statement, from their mother, that my mom said I'm a bad son. Someone else's son had been much better. So these, regular, gaslighting and manipulation really destroys a child. The child, you know, begins to doubt himself and herself. Now, when they grow up to be adults, it is very difficult because everybody wants a healthy relationship. Ideally, in a healthy relationship, everybody gets a space to be themselves. Everybody gets a room to express themselves and, convey their needs. But these kids are just like kids, even if they, grow up, even if they, grow up as an adult, still there is a part of them that is like a kid who is hungry for validation by their parent. So these kids are often like papa's girl and mama's boy. Even if they get married or they get into a relationship, they might keep on seeking validation and approval of their covert narcissistic parents, and that becomes quite a difficult and problematic thing. So in an intimate relationship, in a uh, uh, close relationship, uh, both should share their vulnerabilities, both should open up and be with each other. But if a husband who's been raised by a covert narcissist is emotionally distant from the partner, he's just sleeping and having sex and having kid and giving money, eating food, and that's it. But emotionally he is very bonded with his covert narcissistic parent. So these adult, be it a woman or a man, is also a victim of emotional incest. Yeah, they are extremely entangled. They had been parentified by these covert narcissistic parents. So they have this emotional incest or covert incest, as they say, and these kids are extremely dependent on their parents emotionally for their validation and approval. And trust me, that creates a void in their personal space. For me, a healthy partnership or healthy relationship with my husband would be when he looks out for me, I look out for him, I share with him and he shares with me. But when the partner is having a covert narcissistic parent, they are raised like puppies, like dogs. So whenever the whistle goes on or whenever the alarm goes on, they'll keep running. They'll come running, and they'll look for that tiny little breadcrumb, and that hurts the partner also, because personal relationship is absolutely different. The relationship with your parents is different, relationship with your kids is different, relationship with your spouse is different. So every relationship has different dynamics. But things become ugly when you have that emotional entanglement only with your parent, but you don't have any emotions with your spouse, and that makes the relationship very hollow. So most of the relationships that I have seen where the kid is having a covert narcissistic parent, the kid is very disconnected. The kid does everything and anything just to please the parent. The kid doesn't do anything and everything to please the partner. The kid is just devoted to the parent because they have been raised, they have been enslaved with all that series of minimization, gaslighting, manipulation, triangulation, and playing victim, and making these kids feel as if they are going to break the cycle of misery and pain in the family. They are the ones, who are going to heal their parent. They are the ones who is going to change their situation. They are the ones who is going to heal them out of the brutality that they went through. So these covert narcissistic parents really don't know what damage they are doing to their children. They are doing the damage to the children for their selfish needs, but they don't know that once they die, the child has to, live in this world. The child is not dying with them. The child needs to have a partner. The child needs to have a family and life of his own. And if he is so, enmeshed in a wrong way, entangled in a wrong way, and conditioned in a wrong way, it will be difficult for the child. Kids raised by covert narcissists show that they have a higher rate of divorce because they are so controlled by their parent that they don't have anything personal with their partner, and then the partner chooses to leave them, then the partner chooses to divorce them, because in the end it's not the partner's validation and approval that is needed. The validation and approval is needed of the covert narcissistic parent. So it's quite a very horrible kind of a situation, but that is how it is. And the kids realize this when their covert narcissistic parents are dead and when their partners have also left them. That is the time, or I would say the biggest realization and awakening that these kids have. I mean, as an adult, the biggest realization and awakening moment they have is when their parents are dead. Yes, there is some amount of grief, but there is some amount of freedom and some amount of clarity. But by that time, it's too late. It's often too late. They might have missed, that good partner that they had. They might have really, lost an amazing person than their partner was. And I mean, they have to bear the consequences and live with it. And they have to be alone. So yes, the divorce rates are high amongst the individuals that are raised by covert narcissists, because they also learn all the unhealthy things in covert narcissism. In covert narcissistic families, or I mean the parents to be precise, they make it a point that they practice all kinds of abuse, whether it is emotional, verbal, or physical. And when the kid is exposed to these kinds of abuse, the kids begin to believe that this is a normal thing in a relationship, to be abused and to abuse others. And of course, everything is done under the guise of love. Parents love you, so that is the reason they abuse you. You must have seen a lot of these flying monkeys and toxic enablers justifying it. So when abuse is carried out under the guise of love, it's very lethal, it's very toxic, and it's very destructive. So yes, these kids learn a lot of toxic things, and when they get into relationship in their life, they tend to do the same thing because they have learned the same thing growing up, and they tend to do the same thing, they tend to practice the same thing. And not everyone is there to take people's shit. Not everyone is there to be abused. A relationship, a romantic relationship, is to feel good, empower each other, start a family, and be there next to each other. A romantic relationship is not where I am there to hear the miserable stories of someone's covert narcissistic parent. I have to keep on pleasing them. I have to keep on obeying them. I have to keep on serving them. I have to keep on bearing with their tantrums. I have to accept the fact that maybe I am the partner of that adult who's been raised by covert narcissists. I might be the partner, but in the end, the partner is not emotionally attached to me the way how he is attached to his covert narcissistic parent. So it becomes very difficult. There is so much of emotional incest. I mean, these parents, they really don't know, or maybe They consciously do it. We can't go on saying that they don't know. They consciously do it. And they really make their children so emotionally dependent. They really start treating their children, these covert narcissistic parents, they start treating their children as a replacement to their spouse emotionally. And that's horrible. Let the kid have space. Let the kid have certain relationship with certain people. Why do you have to emotionally manipulate your kid into being your emotional partner? Yeah, so that's absolutely bad, horrible, but what to do? That's how these people are. And then these kids, I mean, who are raised by covert narcissists, they are all the time seeking validation and approval. And of course they are used to the silent treatment, and that's how they had been manipulated, controlled, and used all this while. So whenever their parents show up silent treatment, these kids feel uncomfortable in their present life. Their kids feel a little disconnected. Their kids feel miserable. Their kids feel depressed. And who gets affected then? It's the partner of that kid that gets affected. It's the new family of that kid that gets affected. The husband or the wife or whatever the relationship is. The other end, the spouse, gets affected. If my partner is depressed, I would get affected. I would feel horrible as well. I would feel miserable. I would do anything to help him out. But I cannot do anything to help him out of that depressive state. I cannot take that person out of that condition, because that person is addicted to coming out of that depressive state only by the validation of his or her covert narcissistic parent. So this is how damaging a covert narcissistic parents are. And this is how painful it is to be with someone who's been raised by covert narcissistic parents. I mean, it's very difficult to unlearn, let me tell you, because it's so much of victim playing, and stories of being brutalized and parentifying the children, emotional incest, drama triangle, all of these toxic enablers around. Oh, there is so much of abuse that these beings are not capable to have relationship, anything apart from what they have with their parent. So these parents really have a selfish standpoint in abusing and manipulating their children and making them extremely emotionally, mentally handicapped, and just be dependent on them, and that's it. If their work is done, that's it. They don't care how they would be after they are long gone. So yes, this was all about, I wouldn't say this is all about, but this is a little bit about how painful it gets to be with an adult that has been raised by narcissistic parents. Hope you guys liked the video. Please like, share, subscribe the channel. And in case if I have missed in some point, or in case if you would like to add in something to it, you can always comment below. Till then, take care of yourself. Bye.